My ex lost custody over pills and violence. Now she's sneaking into my daughter's life through Snapchat.
Hi, I'm Dean, 41, and 3 weeks ago I found out my teenage daughter had been secretly visiting her biological mother, who lost custody a decade ago, for months. It started with a lie about algebra. Lacey said she needs help with equations, my daughter Ellie announced on a random Tuesday after dinner, already half out the door with her backpack slung over one shoulder. "I'll be home by 9, I swear." It sounded harmless enough. My 15-year-old was a good kid, honor roll, band, didn't vape or dye her hair black every time she had a feeling, so I let her go. I didn't think twice. I should have. But that wasn't the lie that unraveled everything. That came later, 2 weeks later to be exact, when I pulled into a Walgreens parking lot on my way home from work, and I saw her. Not Ellie, her. Vivian, my ex-wife, the woman who vanished from our lives in a blur of pills, probation, and court-ordered supervised visits that never happened, the woman who lost every ounce of legal custody after Ellie's 5th birthday, the woman my daughter hadn't seen in 10 years. Until now. I watched from my car in stunned silence as Ellie stood beside her mother's ancient red Corolla, laughing like it was normal. Vivian leaned against the driver door smoking, sunglasses hiding half her face and a shopping bag full of snacks hanging off her wrist. Ellie hugged her, like nothing had ever gone wrong, like she hadn't watched this woman scream through courtroom security and call me a thief for stealing her child. I didn't get out of the car, not right away. I waited, and then Ellie got in Vivian's car, and the doors locked. I called her phone, straight to voicemail. That was the first time I ever felt it. The very specific, skin-crawling kind of fear you feel when you realize your kid has secrets that could break them. I didn't even know what I was afraid of exactly. Vivian wasn't dangerous, exactly, but she was unstable, addictive, like a house made of fireworks with a gas leak and no adult supervision. I followed them. Not proud of it, but I did. I followed them across town to a little gray duplex off Fuller Street, the kind with broken blinds and a dying porch light. I watched my daughter disappear inside it like she'd done it 100 times before. And that's when I knew. This wasn't the first visit. This was routine. I gripped the steering wheel so hard I heard the plastic creak. I'd spent 10 years shielding my daughter from Vivian's chaos, 10 years being the responsible one, the reliable one, the boring one who packed her lunch and knew her best friend's hamster's name. And somehow, while I was doing everything right, the mother who did everything wrong had snuck back in. I didn't go in after them. I just drove home and sat at the kitchen table for an hour staring at Ellie's empty cereal bowl from that morning like it might offer me some kind of clue. It didn't. But her phone history did. When she finally got home, 3 hours later, humming to herself like she hadn't detonated a nuclear bomb in my brain, I asked her to hand it over. She hesitated. I didn't yell, I didn't threaten. I just asked. And when she gave it to me, that was the moment her face changed, like something in her finally realized the game was up. There were texts, photos, locations, proof. My daughter had been seeing Vivian behind my back for almost 5 months, and I had no idea. She didn't deny it, didn't even try. Ellie just sat across from me at the kitchen table, arms crossed tight over her chest, and said in a flat voice, "She's my mom too, you know." I stared at her, heart hammering. "Ellie, Vivian hasn't had custody since you were 5. You remember why, don't you?" "I remember what you told me," she shot back, eyes suddenly blazing, "that she was sick, that she made bad choices, and that the judge decided she couldn't be around me. But you never let me talk to her. You never let me decide anything." "Because you were 5, I snapped, louder than I meant to. I took a breath. "You were a little kid. You needed protecting." She looked away, jade, jaw clenched. "You never even let me see pictures of her." because the last time Vivian showed up, she was barefoot, crying, and trying to crawl through my kitchen window at 2 a.m. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Instead, I asked, "How long have you been seeing her?" She hesitated, then said, "Since May." 5 months. I felt like someone had punched a hole through my ribs. How? When? She reached out on Instagram. She found me. Ellie's voice wavered the first time. She said she was clean. She said she'd been sober for 2 years and in therapy, and that she just wanted to talk. And you believed her? She looked me dead in the eye. I wanted to believe her. I had to close my eyes for a second. Where do you go? What does she say to you? Nowhere. We usually just hang out at her place, talk, sometimes go get tacos. She tells me stories about when I was a baby. She has this whole box of pictures, stuff I've never seen before. I swallowed hard. That box used to be mine once, from when we were a family, before the chaos. She told me you'd never forgive her, but maybe I could. That's when I saw it. The guilt, the confusion, the impossible tangle of teenage loyalty and grief and curiosity, all of it written across her face. "She's not supposed to see you," I said quietly. "Not without going through the court, not without supervision. You know that, right?" Ellie nodded slowly. But I missed her. And just like that, I wasn't angry anymore. I was terrified. Not because Vivian had come back, but because my daughter, this smart, kind, painfully honest girl, was still just a kid trying to make sense of things no child should have to untangle alone. I had no idea what to do next, but I knew I needed help. So the next morning, I called my lawyer. And then I called CPS.
CPS didn't exactly roll out a red carpet. The woman on the phone, Janice something, spoke in a tone so neutral it almost tipped into cold. I explained the situation: unauthorized contact, custody violations, possible manipulation. She made a few noises, took down notes, and finally said, "We'll need a written statement and any evidence you can provide. Screenshots, messages, dates. We'll open an inquiry." "Inquiry?" I repeated. "My daughter has been seeing a woman with no legal custody for months, and you're calling it an inquiry?" "I understand your concern, Mr. Halbrook," she said like she'd said it 1,000 times that week. "But unless we have reason to believe the child is in immediate danger, it's a non-emergency response. That's the protocol." I hung up with a sour taste in my mouth and a pit in my gut. Vivian was a danger. Maybe not the dramatic, drug-fueled danger of 10 years ago, but the kind that crept in quietly, all charm and apology and half-truths. The kind that made a child feel loved and special while slowly eroding every sense of safety you'd built. Ellie didn't see that yet. She saw her mom, and that scared the hell out of me. I picked her up from school that afternoon, which wasn't our usual routine. She clocked the change immediately. "What's going on?" I said as we pulled away from the curb. "We need to talk," I said. "Somewhere private." We ended up in the Target parking lot, neutral ground. She sipped from a gas station smoothie, staring at me with cautious eyes. "I called CPS," I told her. Her face went still. "You what?" "I'm not trying to hurt you, Elle, but your mom doesn't have the right to see you, and if something happens, if anything goes wrong, I'm the one they'll come after." "She's not hurting me." "That's not the point," I said gently. "She doesn't get to make that decision, and neither do you. Not yet." She stared out the window. "I just wanted to know who she was, that's all." "I get that, I really do. But this isn't just about knowing her. This is about trust, safety, boundaries." I paused, and she crossed every single one of them the second she contacted you behind my back. Ellie didn't respond. I let the silence hang. Then finally she asked in a small voice, "Are you going to press charges?" It was the first time I realized she wasn't afraid of Vivian. She was afraid of me, of what I might do, and that broke something in me. "No," I said quietly, "not yet. I'm not out to ruin her life, but if she keeps this up, if she contacts you again without going through the court, I'll have no choice." Ellie nodded, silent tears sliding down her cheeks. "I miss her," she whispered. I reached across the console and took her hand. I know, but I need you to trust me, Ellie. I've never lied to you about her, and I never will. Later that night, I changed every password, locked down every device, and finally blocked Vivian's number on Ellie's phone. But 2 days later, Ellie found a way to see her again anyway. And this time, I found out because Vivian showed up at my house. I knew it was her before I even opened the door. There's a very specific way dread settles in your stomach when the past shows up uninvited. It's heavier than fear, slower, like your body recognizes the threat before your brain catches up. Vivian stood on my porch like she belonged there. Hair cleaner than I remembered, makeup subtle, hoodie zipped up like she was trying to look harmless. If I didn't know her history, I might have mistaken her for a stressed-out PTA mom. Ellie froze behind me. "I just wanted to talk," she said quickly, hands raised. "I didn't mean to cause problems." "You're trespassing," I said, calm, flat. My voice surprised even me. "You need to leave." Her eyes flicked to Ellie. "Sweetheart, tell him I didn't do anything wrong." That was it. That was the line. I stepped fully onto the porch and closed the door behind me so she couldn't see Ellie's face. "You are not allowed to contact my daughter. You know that." "She contacted me," she snapped, mask slipping. "You don't get to control everything, Dean." "I get to protect my kid," I shot back, "and you went around the court, the law, and me." She scoffed. "You act like I'm dangerous. You've had 3 relapses and 2 restraining orders. Don't insult my intelligence." Her eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You're calling the cops now?" "No," I said. "I already called CPS." That did it. Her face changed completely, rage bleeding through panic. "You did what?" "They're opening a case," I continued, "which means if you contact Ellie again, if you come near my house, her school, anywhere, this stops being a civil issue." She laughed, sharp and ugly. "You're really going to traumatize her like that?" "No," I said. "You already tried." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You can't keep her from me forever." I met her stare. "Watch me." She left after that, tires squealing, dignity nowhere in sight. Inside, Ellie was shaking. "I didn't tell her to come," she said immediately. "I swear." "I know," I said, pulling her into a hug she didn't resist. But this just got bigger than both of us. The next morning, CPS showed up at my door, and suddenly, I was the one being investigated.
The caseworker's name was Marcus, and he had the posture of a man who'd already heard every lie twice before breakfast. "Standard procedure," he said, stepping into my living room with a clipboard and a laptop bag. "Whenever there's a report of custodial interference, especially when it involves a prior CPS history, we're obligated to check on both the minor and the home environment." I nodded, jaw tight. Ellie sat curled in the corner of the couch like she was trying to disappear into it. "I'm not the one breaking the law here," I said. "Vivian showed up on my porch, again, after 5 months of sneaking around behind a court order." Marcus glanced up from his clipboard. "Yes, but the initial report came from her. She filed it the same day you contacted our office, claimed emotional abuse and alienation, said you were preventing your daughter from maintaining a healthy relationship with her biological mother." I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, but because it was so textbook Vivian it hurt. "She's using my kid as a pawn again," I muttered. "Nothing's changed." "I don't pass judgment," Marcus said, his tone unreadable. "I just ask questions." And so he did, to both of us. He talked to Ellie alone first, in her room. I waited in the kitchen, ears straining for tone, for footsteps, for anything. The quiet made it worse. Then he sat with me, asked about routines, disciplinary strategies, my work schedule, any medications Ellie was on, if I'd ever raised my voice in anger. "Yes," I admitted, "I've raised my voice. I've never raised a hand." "Do you believe your daughter is safe with you?" I stared at him. "Absolutely." He nodded once. "That's good, because right now, everyone's watching." He left an hour later, promising follow-up within 10 business days. Ellie didn't say much that night, but as I tucked her in, something she usually pretended she was too old for, she asked, voice quiet, "Are they going to take me away?" My chest cracked in half. No, baby, no. No one's taking you anywhere. Not if I have anything to say about it. She nodded against her pillow, but I could see it in her eyes. She didn't believe me. Not completely. Vivian had gotten in just far enough to shake the ground under both of us. The next morning, I got a call from Ellie's school counselor, and that's when I found out Vivian had shown up there, too. She didn't come inside, the school counselor said, her voice tight with concern. But she was parked across the street for over an hour. One of our teachers recognized her from an old emergency contact file. I rubbed my temples, standing in the back stockroom of my hardware store, phone pressed to my ear. Did she try to approach Ellie? No, but a student aide saw her taking pictures of the school entrance. We thought it best to notify you immediately, and I've already contacted our resource officer. Thank you, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I'll be there in 20 minutes. By the time I arrived, the Corolla was gone, but the damage had been done. Ellie was in the nurse's office, white as a sheet, hugging her knees to her chest. Her counselor sat beside her, offering tissues and soft encouragement. They texted me, Ellie whispered when I walked in. They said they were just checking in, making sure I was okay. I kneeled in front of her. Ellie, listen to me. I need you to be completely honest. Did you ask her to come? No, I swear, she said quickly. I didn't even reply. I blocked her number like you said. But then she messaged me on Snapchat. Of course she did. Vivian could smell a loophole like blood in the water. I stood up and faced the counselor. Can we do a formal no-contact request through the school? We've already initiated it, but I'd recommend a restraining order if things escalate further. They already had. That night, I filed for an emergency order of protection. I also scheduled another appointment with my lawyer because Marcus, the CPS guy, had called again. Vivian had now submitted additional complaints, including emotional neglect and coercive parenting. She's trying to build a narrative, my lawyer said bluntly, flipping through the paperwork. She's not trying to get custody. She's trying to create chaos. If she can throw enough mud, she's hoping some of it sticks. And what's our move? Document everything. Keep Ellie's school informed, and we request a formal custody hearing before she does. I looked across her desk, feeling tired down to my bones. You think she'll fight it? She already is. Later that night, as Ellie dozed off on the couch with her favorite hoodie half-zipped and a rerun of Friends murmuring in the background, I sat at the dining room table and made a spreadsheet. Dates, contacts, messages, school reports, CPS calls, everything. I wasn't just protecting my daughter anymore. I was preparing for war. And then, just before midnight, my phone buzzed with a restricted number. I let it go to voicemail. Vivian's voice came through the speaker a moment later. I won't be erased, Dean. You can't rewrite me out of her life. She'll come back to me. You'll see. I played it 3 times. Then I sent it straight to my lawyer.
The hearing was set for the following Friday. Temporary emergency orders in place. Ellie's school on high alert. CPS still conducting their slow, bureaucratic inquiry. But Vivian? Vivian was escalating. 2 days before court, a package showed up on my doorstep. No return address. Inside, a worn baby blanket that hadn't been in our house in over a decade, and a photo of Ellie as a toddler, sitting in Vivian's lap, finger painting on the patio of our old place. Tucked into the folds of the blanket was a handwritten note. She remembers more than you think. Stop poisoning her. That was it. No signature, no threats, just that. I called my lawyer immediately. This counts as harassment, right? She didn't even pause. Yes, bring the note, bring the package. This is going to help us. And it did. When we walked into family court Friday morning, I had 3 binders in my backpack. One was labeled Vivian, Direct Contact. The second, CPS and School Documentation. The third, Ellie's Communications, Redacted. Trevor, Ellie's biological dad, didn't show. Hasn't in years. Parental rights terminated during his second stint in rehab when Ellie was 2. I've had sole custody ever since. Vivian, of course, did show. Looking smug, hair curled, blouse tucked, wearing this artificial expression like she'd just come from hosting a bake sale. She tried to make eye contact with Ellie in the hallway. Ellie turned her face to the wall.
That was the first time I saw her flinch. She wasn't confused anymore. She was done. Inside the courtroom, her lawyer trotted out the same narrative, that I had systematically alienated Vivian from her daughter, that I refused to co-parent, that I was holding Ellie emotionally hostage. My lawyer waited patiently, then slid the voicemail transcript across the table. "She'll come back to me, you'll see." Not exactly the words of someone promoting healthy reunification. She followed that with the note, the photo, the package, and Marcus's preliminary CPS findings. No evidence of abuse or neglect in the home. Then came Ellie. Yes, we let her speak. She asked to. She stood before the judge, fidgeting, nervous, but steady, and said, "I used to wonder what my mom was like. I wanted to believe she was better. But now I don't feel safe. She doesn't listen. She doesn't care what rules she's breaking. She just wants to win." Vivian's smile cracked for the first time. The judge, same one who'd signed the emergency order, took it all in. Quiet, stern. And then she ruled. Supervised visitation only, once a month, in a clinical setting. Any violation, immediate termination of access. Vivian stood there frozen, like someone had slapped her with a shovel. When she finally turned to leave, she didn't look at me. She looked at Ellie and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You'll come back. One day. They always do." Ellie didn't even blink. She just said, "Not this time." It's been 6 weeks since the hearing. 6 weeks of stillness. Not peace exactly, not yet, but stillness, like a forest after a wildfire, burned, blackened in places, but quiet. Vivian hasn't shown up again. No more cryptic voicemails, no packages, no parked cars outside Ellie's school. Either she's finally taking the judge seriously, or her ego's too bruised to come back right now. Ellie's been different too. She doesn't bring up her mom anymore, not directly, but I catch her watching me sometimes, like she's waiting for the other shoe to drop, like she still isn't sure this version of me, the one who fought for her, hard, is permanent. So I make sure she knows. I show up, I check in, I ask if she wants a ride, even when I know she'll say no. I leave dumb sticky notes in her lunch with jokes so bad she rolls her eyes in 3 languages. Last week I came home to find her reorganizing our old photo albums, the ones I kept buried for years. She'd laid them out across the floor, sorting through baby pictures, school portraits, even a couple from the early days, before everything fell apart. "Do you want me to go through these with you?" I asked carefully. She shook her head. Not with unkindly, she just said, "I just wanted to see what was real." I sat nearby anyway, not pushing, just being there. After a few minutes, she held up a photo, her, maybe 3 years old, crammed between me and Vivian on the couch, all baby teeth and Kool-Aid stains. "Do you think she ever really loved me?" she asked. It was the hardest question I've ever had to answer. I said slowly, "I think she wanted to love you the right way. I think she just never learned to love someone more than she needed to be loved herself." Ellie nodded, like she already knew, like she just needed me to say it. She put the photo down and didn't pick it back up. Instead, she crawled over, rested her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "Thanks for not letting her win." That's when I knew. This wasn't about keeping Vivian out anymore. It was about keeping Ellie whole. And I'd do that every day for the rest of my life. Later that night, I emailed Marcus at CPS. I let him know we were doing well, that the emergency had passed, and the storm had moved on, for now. He replied simply, "Glad to hear. Keep the documentation, just in case." I will. Because people like Vivian don't vanish forever. They wait, they circle, they test the fence. But this time, the fence is strong. This time, she doesn't get to rewrite the story. This time, the door stays locked. And inside, my daughter is safe. She's not just healing, she's learning that love, the real kind, is the kind that stays. Always. If you've ever had to protect your child from someone you once loved, you're not alone. You're stronger than you think, and you're doing the right thing.